but my family is dark skinned. So for me, coming here as an immigrant, I never saw anyone who was African or African American as like different than me, because South Indians, I mean, we're like literally at the tip, like Kerala is the tip of India. You were like,
Okay.
you could just, if you could swim long enough, you could probably swim to Africa. And if
You
you
got
look like,
curly hair. Yes.
yes, between like Somalia and Eritrea, like there's obviously been some intermingling. So for
Obvious,
me,
yes.
yeah, so for me, I never saw it as other. I never had that in my spirit, but faced it with my family. I mean, I faced it definitely with my ex-husband, and we'd go out somewhere. He's tall. He's like 6'5", like was an athlete. So he's intimidating. He's intimidating, but just this big old gentle spirit. And like I would face it all the time, all the time. People just looking or saying things, or maybe they'd be comfortable with me, and then they see him come around, their body language changes. They're much more, closed off. And then at work, when people didn't know that my children were mixed, or they just didn't know my personal beliefs. I mean, there's been times at work where people have said the N word, and I'm like, you can't say that. And they're like, oh, well, I was using it in a quote. You still can't say it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that just doesn't give you the okay to say it. So
Right.
all the time, all the time. And I'm not one of those people that I'm not going to sit there and be quiet. I'm going to sit there and say something about it. I remember in one of my engineering classes, and this was probably the most challenging because this was a professor I really, really respected. He was like a retired Air Force general, like just amazing man, taught
Mhm.
like engineering leadership. And he, at the end of the class, he'd been talking about this dude that he was going to bring in. He brought in this old man, older gentleman. Um, and this gentleman was talking about, the best leaders of all time. And he said, and the best leader was Robert E. Lee. And I'm just sitting here looking at everyone, and I'm
Wow.
thinking, I'm thinking,
This
am
is
I
the
the
white professor, huh?
yeah, white professor brings another white professor. And at the end of it, and mind you, the whole time, this professor, amazing man, has always told us if you feel uncomfortable, say something, speak up, don't let
Yeah.
those situations occur. So, I
Mhm.
mean, at the end of that, I remember I said something, it's like,
Mhm.
hey, I don't know if I know there's no negative intention, but regardless of the leadership of Robert E. Lee, this man was standing for the enslavement of people, was
Mhm.
standing for this. And to bring in a professor, and this is 2014, and say that this was the best general, you can't separate those things, and it's at
Yeah.
odds with what you're teaching in the class. And that was just a very challenging moment because, like I said, I'm a mechanical engineer and I'm in oil and gas, so I'm
Okay.
constantly
Yeah.
surrounded by patriarchy, misogyny, racism. So yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, I always say, like, it's got to be God that's got me to where I'm at. Because I open my mouth and speak. I've always opened my mouth and spoke, but in these spaces, yeah, all the time, all the time. I always see, like, yeah, my Black brothers and sisters constantly being attacked. And it's like, I feel like culturally, in the community, when you're attacked so much, I feel like in our queer communities we have a lot of education on what it means to be an ally, how to
Mhm.
be an ally, things to say, things to do. But in the Black community, that's not there. There's not that education on this is what an ally says or does. Here's how to have those hard conversations. So I mean, I've just tried to figure that out on my own, and I've come across very aggressive, very rough, very angry. But I've had to learn how to be able to tone it down. But
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not apologizing for any of those times I came across rough.
Mhm.
I'd rather come across rough and, make someone uncomfortable than to not. So, yes,
Same.
constantly.
Yes. Yes. Same, same, same. I swear. Being that you have, daughter and sons, how does that impact like how you show up for them, and what's the conversation you've had with your ex-husband as far as how to, yeah, navigate through those?
Yeah. So we very intentionally, from the time that they were born, I have actively sought out books that
Mhm.
show children of color, that show, something other than just like a white child as a centerpiece. I've bought books on, India, so they have their past, books from the continent of Africa, just so that they know and they're comfortable. We were very blessed that for 5 years we lived in Louisiana, which is, half Black, half white. So they were surrounded by that. They were surrounded by people that looked like them. They were just surrounded by more people of color. And then coming back to Oklahoma, my son, my oldest, he's 9. So when we came back, he was probably 7 or 8. I remember him coming to me and telling me, Mom, I'm the only black kid in my class. These kids are talking about my hair, they're talking about my lips, they're talking about my skin. And it broke my little heart. It broke my little heart. And then my younger son, same thing with him. He's going places and people are talking about his skin. And my daughter, she probably hurt my heart the most because she came in one day and she was like, it was like a series of things. She came in, she was like, Mom, I want hair like Elsa. And then it was, Mom, I wish I had white skin because it was prettier. And, despite all of these things I've put to, constantly talk about, I love your beautiful skin. I love how chocolate is. I love how brown it is. I love your hair texture. They still absorb that. So how does it affect my parenting? It's very intentional for me to make sure that when they look in the mirror, they love what they see and they recognize that it's different from what's around them. But I've also had to learn that regardless of, whatever I pour into them, they're still going to be influenced by society. And it's just, I just have to come back harder. I have to come back harder because my daughter was the one that, oh, it hurt my heart. When I tell you it hurt my heart, it hurt my
I
heart.
know that feeling. I
Oh,
know
I
that
felt like I had
feeling.
failed her. I felt like I had failed, but I just had to, well, we're going to just buy some more books. We'll just continue to look and we'll look at ourselves and we'll love ourselves. And that doesn't mean we don't love anybody else. It means that we love the way that God made us.
Mhm.
Um, it's not something I ignore. I talk to them about it all the time. I mean, we've already had the conversations on police. If you see police, here's how you act. Um, I'm very honest with them about here's the background of this country. Here's the history of this country. Here's what you're going to learn in school. But there were people here and they look like you and they look like me. And here's what Europe did. And, here's what they did in India. So I'm very, very honest with them. I'm very honest with them about what they're not going to learn in school. And they're
Mhm.
very honest with me. I mean, my children are very communicative. They come and they talk to me about what they've learned. We just have really good dialogue and conversation. And I expect that to continue. I expect them to continue. And there's just been times in school where I know they say things and I hear back from them afterwards and I'm like, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for
Mhm.
speaking up and saying things. And Thanksgiving is always a great time for us to talk about, well, here, here's what Thanksgiving really was, and here's how you
Mhm.
navigate what's taught to you, and
Yep.
here's how you sit in that. So it's I actively try to teach truth and love to them, a
Yeah.
different truth than what they're learning in schools.
My hope is to have like the ultimate meetup with all these
Yeah,
different Blindian couples, Blindian Blasian, so we can like have
I
our
would
kids,
love that.
yeah, to connect,
You've
even if
got,
it's virtual, okay?
yeah,
Like have like a chill session because
yeah.
they need each other, they really.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's going to be a side conversation, side project on how we manifest that one. Yeah. So for me, it's come down to education between lots of books and podcasts because thank God we live in a time period where education is completely available to us. So I
Yes.
read I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and then I try to get plugged in to YouTube pages or pages like yourself where there's these different perspectives so that I don't feel as alone. So I can hear other people who've been through it and navigate, see how they navigate it so I can learn. So I definitely think education helps a lot. But the second big thing, probably equally as important, maybe sometimes even more so, is my communities. I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of my friends are a lot of my friends are black women and they're in relationships with black men or they have children with black men, but there's so much connectedness because I have not been a black woman, but know from listening to them, the experiences, there's so much relatability. They can understand what I'm going through. And because I have Black sons and Black daughter, they can just help. They may not be able to tell me exactly what to do for my situation, but there is a woman there who says,
Mhm.
this, I know it's hard. Like, here's what I think might help you. Or, you know what, girl, just come over. Just come over. Let's just chill. Like, let's hang out. Let's let the kids
I
play
love
and,
that.
watch a TV show. But I think for sure those communities,
Mhm.
definitely women of color are big. And I will always 100% say Black girl magic. Like, if you don't have a community of strong Black women around you, baby, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
Baby, yeah.
Because I will say hands down, for me, my community, a huge part of me, it's been Black women. Black women have taken the place of the sisters that I don't have, the motherly influence, the aunts, the cousins. Black women have come in and just supported me and uplifted me and just seen me and just encouraged me. So I would definitely say, without a shadow of a doubt, like, to anybody watching your channel with biracial children, they need to get some solid Black queens around them, because it's love. It's so much love. It's so much love. You can't exist in this
Yeah.
world as a Black woman and just not get to a place of personal power if you're positive. You know what I mean? Like, to be
Mhm,
a
mhm.
positive Black woman requires so much more than, honestly, anyone else. Like, period. So to have that power
Thank you for
accessible to you
that.
and to have that love, like, that's life changing. It's absolutely life
Eh,
changing.
definitely. I have a sister circle. I am
Yeah.
one of those people too. So thank you for saying that. I definitely feel um in this world, because we are the most devalued group, the most unprotected, and we
Yeah.
still love as hard as we do and still
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
And to your point of mentioning about, like, if you have children that's going to be identified as Black and you are not a Black mom, you should connect with some Black women, especially with just making sure that they love their hair, they
Yes.
love the way they look, because
Yeah.
that is a really big deal that I think a lot of moms of biracial children really like take for granted.
Yeah.
And it impacts the self-esteem. And I'm
Yeah.
speaking not only as a counselor that work with young people that are a variety of backgrounds.
Yeah.
I feel very blessed in that. I hear it all the time. And
Oh,
it seems very simple to
yeah.
parents or adults, but it's impactful. Just imagine
Yeah.
you growing up not loving the way you look or your
Yeah.
hair texture or the style of it, or my parent
Yeah.
doesn't know what to do with it. That that really internalizes in a way that I don't think people quite understand. People with straight hair, people
Yeah.
like that can go through a fine tooth comb.
Right. Yeah.
You really don't understand. That is, it cuts to the core, especially girls,
Yeah.
especially girls. Yeah, that's serious. So thank you for saying that.
Yes.
Right.
Always. 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 Always.
That's what this is. It's about sisterhood, and it's nice to be appreciated.
Yes. Without a
I
doubt.
swear, it's like, do we get any appreciation?
Yeah. No, I
um,
say it all the time. I say it all the time.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave a like.